rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland in front of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo TV. Watch over 100 channels of live sports and TV for half the cost of cable. There's no contract and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers were unable to keep pace with the Indiana Pacers in Indiana around New Year's Eve. This feels like a haunting tradition. I actually mentioned it in our Discord before that I feel like they always play the Pacers around this time of year, and it's always a game that I just find to be unenjoyable, and this was certainly the case. Joining me to talk through this loss and talk through our feelings is my co-host Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fine. Some losses and some losing streaks, I'll find myself spiraling a little bit. I think the hour between game wrapping and getting into this pod, I've sobered up a little. And kind of chilled out. I don't think the Cavs played a good game tonight. I think even when they were winning, they weren't playing a good game. I think that first quarter, the one they won by 5 was a very silly quarter, I mean, even down to Hield scoring the fastest bucket in NBA history.
Man, I felt bad for John Michael because he was talking about how Indy usually gets off to a slow start. Let's see if that trend continues. And the jump ball goes straight to Buddy Hield, who immediately hit a 3, which really was foreshadowing an unpleasant night from behind the arc.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. This opponent 3-point shooting stuff is painful. And, it's so hard because on one hand, I think the Cavs played pretty bad defense tonight. And I also think they played bad offense that led to some of that bad defense, and I'll talk about that as well. Because 126 points, you wouldn't call it a bad offensive night. But I thought they just weren't super disciplined. They were getting turned around on switches, and who was communicating that the man in the corner would come in to tag the roller on a pick and roll, and no one would rotate over to that corner. Just some undisciplined defense tonight that gave up a ton of wide open threes for Indy, and they still shouldn't have shot 61%. So, there is a degree of the Cavs are getting hit with some really bad 3-point luck right now. No one, and it's such a loser way to analyze the game. I highly doubt JB is just in the, at least I doubt he will go into the locker room and goes, guys, we're just not getting lucky enough. We should just hope they miss. But to some extent, you should expect more misses than this. There's probably on a normal night by NBA standards, maybe the Cavs give up 3 less threes and we're heading to overtime, But they, it's 3 games in a row where teams have just shot unseasonably well from 3. Especially, Raptors, who are a bad 3-point shooting team, and then the Nets, who are a good 3-point shooting team.
It's a little more tolerable when it is Brooklyn
when
and
it's like
Indiana
Kevin Durant ruining your life.
Right, these are 2 really good offensive teams, right? Indiana is 6th in the Eastern Conference primarily because of their ability to get 3-pointers up and because of how good they are offensively. And I wish they weren't hogging all the 3-point shooters. They're one of the few teams that I kind of envy their wings. But I agree with your assessment that I think the Cavs just weren't as sharp as they could have been to start this game. And
no way.
Slow starts have been an issue for this team, but I almost felt like the initial defense from the team was good, and then it would be either a deflection that led to a scramble in an open 3 or an unfocused turnover early in the game that led to an open 3 or an offensive rebound. But even at that, this is why normally I like to rewatch the game before we do these podcasts, because I'm looking at it and the Pacers only had 4 offensive rebounds. They did not have a ton of fast break points. Actually, the Cavs won the fast break battle, which I thought getting out in transition was one of the things I liked about the Cavs effort in this game. And even points off turnovers. They had 17, the Cavs had 15. So it's not like there was a big discrepancy there, but I do feel like the initial defense was better And then it just was a lack of focus to give up either those turnovers that led to those open shots, the offensive rebounds, and just not doing a good job finishing possessions. I thought that was the Cavs' issue early on. And then once that faucet opens up, good Lord, the floodwaters were going, man. Like Indiana was hitting absolutely everything from three. Like they only gave up 31 3-pointers. So that's like not an astronomical amount, but they hit 19 of those 31 shots. Like that to me is just absurd. And it is a little bit of bad luck. And you can look at individual plays. The Okoro goaltend that wasn't a goaltend bothered me. Same with the deflection out of bounds that led to 2 points from Indiana when could have been a lot closer. But overall, like the Cavs didn't play well enough tonight, and that's the primary reason why they lost this game.
Yeah, and I want to talk about one of those examples I mentioned at the just earlier about how I think their offense put them in a bad spot on a lot of these possessions. And this play I'm about to, it's not a play, it's just a screen grab if you're watching on YouTube. But they had a lot of possessions that look like this tonight, Justin, where you had 4 Cavaliers players, within a step or two of their own baseline. On the rebound, floor balance is not a sexy thing to talk about when analyzing basketball, but
it's even less sexy for those audio only listeners.
Just more incentive to watch on YouTube every now and again. But the Cavs had a ton of plays that had this sort of balance, and when you have 4 players under your own free throw line, and in this instance 4 players inside, as low as the restricted area, it's just a gift for teams to run on you with advantage. I thought the Pacers, even on plays that might not have qualified as fast break points because you ended up having all 10 guys down past half court. I think they had a lot of possessions like this where you had 2 guys sitting in the corners, and then you're just running into 4-on-3s where you're super susceptible to trailer threes. And I just think these kind of plays, these are focus plays to me, where either Okoro or LeVert has to get up to the top of the arc. You cannot have 4 guys that low, or you're gonna get killed. This is the NBA. So I think those kind of plays really bugged me tonight. I thought there was a real lack of focus on both ends of the ball. Even though I thought they scored the ball really, really well. But these not every miss is made equal. And a miss that leaves 4 guys under the basket is a particularly painful one. I don't even think the Pacers scored on this one. I think Duarte walked into a pull-up 3 that he missed. But it's really the principle that matters, and I really think that the Cavs need to clean that kind of stuff up, especially if they're going to have bigs trying to score on the inside. You have to have other people getting back to help protect them.
Yeah, it's process over result in those situations, and I think that's a great thing to highlight. And hey, this is another example why I love dead ball turnovers, Carter. No fast breaks. No.
I'll tell you what, that dead ball turnover would have been better than that Evan Mobley miss on that particular play. So,
I said at the time, you laughed at me, but I said sometimes it's better than a missed shot, even. And you know what? I think I'm a little vindicated. But
you're definitely right. It was the tone and the nature of the spin that I had to challenge you on.
Yeah, because I'm a crazy person. This happens. But this was definitely kind of one of those when it rains, it pours night. Like I said, coming into this game, I just kind of had a bad feeling. This seems to always happen when we play in Indiana, and it always seems to happen around New Year's. And to make matters worse, right before we recorded this podcast, Carter, I took the dog out, and you know what happened?
What?
My handle fell off. My door handle fell off. So I'm going to need to find a little Allen key because you don't want to be missing a door handle. Luckily, I was the door was already open and I was able to close it and deadbolt it. So I'll do those repairs after this podcast.
So hold on. Is it a knob that we're dealing with, or a turn handle?
It's a handle, and there's like a little screw in it that I need to find. Like, I have a million Allen keys around my place. I just need to find one that's small enough to fit in there. I probably don't have one, but it's going to annoy the hell out of me after this podcast.
Oh, Justin, that is just a true cherry on top. for your evening. Overall,
no, what was a true cherry on top? Darius Garland getting hurt in this game.
Ugh.
Like that to me is honestly the most deflating aspect of this game. Looked like he initially hurt his shooting hand, his wrist, in the second quarter, kind of shook it off and was fine. And then in the fourth quarter, I believe it was a collision with Miles Turner, was really, really in pain, was holding that wrist, went to the bench to receive some treatment for a while. They taped it up and he tried to give it a go. But that was kind of when everything was falling apart. And obviously, like, Darius Garland is an essential part to how this team works and to have an offensive rhythm. And that when you give up a 10-0 run, if you're missing your point guard, sometimes that hurts your ability to kind of volley back, right, and score in that stretch. And it's really, really deflating. I hope that this is just like a bruise or something that isn't going to require a lot of time off. But even just those free throws at the end of the game were
troubling. They were troubling, and you got to wonder.
Both of them short, and it looked hard for him to grip the ball in that spot.
Yeah, obviously, we're we're not doctors, though many say we are, which I always have to correct people. People hold us in very, very high esteem in the medical community.
I'll just show my tax returns if people want to believe that. Want proof that I'm not a doctor.
Well, God. Anyway,
I do not make enough to be a doctor, my friend.
Too many jokes ran through my head just now. The free throws for DG did not look good. He didn't look super confident out there. And it feels like a spot where maybe he really asked to get back in. Said he was feeling fine enough, but I just don't know if he was. I don't know if he was really in condition to be out there at that point, based on what we could see, which is obviously super limited, and we'll learn more, as we get this injury checked out. But it's tough, like it's kind of funny because it went from, oh, this team's going to get Ricky Rubio back, and what a great luxury that is, to, oh, they might need Ricky Rubio back very, very soon to actually help. If he misses, if Darius misses some time here. So obviously we have no clue the severity of the injury, but it didn't look great out there. And I'm certainly concerned because he is really, really important for this team. With that said, if you're griping about the defense, the point of attack defense should be really strong, because Isaac Okoro should be in line to get even more minutes if Darius misses time. And I can't even get my brain to there. Like, to me, the most deflating aspect of this is he was having a great game, right? Yeah,
like,
he was awesome.
And this was, we had a long home stretch after kind of the discourse of, like, what's going on with Darius on the road? And for him to have 18 points of 8 of 11 shooting, 8 assists, only 1 turnover, like, who knows? Maybe you can make the argument that he's in Indiana, so it's basically like a second home to him. But, like, he was having a great game and coming off a Brooklyn game where he was really good. And who knows? Maybe if he was healthy, the end of this game goes a little bit differently. But it's definitely concerning when you have January being the toughest month from a scheduling standpoint, and 2 important winnable games against Chicago in this home and home. If he misses even just a few days, he could miss both of those games, and all of a sudden you're into that January stretch that's obviously going to be really challenging for the Cavs. So, I mean, fingers crossed. I don't want to see any tweets with my 3 least favorite letters in the entire alphabet, MRI.
Yeah, I hope not as well. Though I actually was trying to pivot us to something very nice, Justin, which is
I just wanted to compliment his game, because I thought he was having a great game.
I thought Isaac was great tonight. And I think, again, obviously he played way more than he did against Brooklyn. I thought he could have gotten more minutes tonight. I thought he played a game that warranted like 30 minutes, not 20. A couple absolutely thunderous finishes, some really, really good passing. I thought he played better on Halliburton than anyone else by a country mile. And also was a big part of, I thought he did a nice job on Ben Mathurin as well. Mathurin got him once with an offhand floater that was really, really a tough shot. I'm like, well, can't do much better than that. I thought Isaac was great tonight, and I think in my opinion at least, more evidence mounts that he should be getting more minutes and maybe some more time with the starters.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that jumps out to me with Okoro is he just looks so much more confident on the court. Like we talked about how he helps the Cavs push the pace, and I don't think it's a coincidence that in a game where he plays a little more and is playing well, the Cavs actually get out in transition and they get some fast break points. I was really impressed with the passes he made in the fourth quarter. I believe both of them were in the fourth quarter where he caught it and he had already kind of made the read of where Jared Allen was going to be under the basket and just intuitively let the defense kind of come to him, passed it off to Allen for easy buckets. Like, I thought he did kind of the glue guy role that you want to see from Okoro incredibly well tonight. And obviously the point of attack defense, as you said, was very good. Had some monster dunks in this one as well that were a lot of fun. And the free throw shooting, I feel like this gets overlooked a fair bit, but he's been pretty reliable from the free throw line. Like every time he kind of steps up, I have a pretty high level of confidence that he's going to go out there and knock down those shots. And for someone who, you know, the offense is a bit of a question for him overall, it's nice that he's up at 82% coming into this game. I'm sure it'll be a little higher now, but he's become kind of reliable there. And maybe you're seeing some of the fruits of his labor for improving his jump shot and the form and the technique. And maybe that's an indicator that overall the form is going to improve. But yeah, I mean, Isaac and Jarrett, I thought had very good games. Basically, Allen, Okoro, and Love were the only Cavs tonight that didn't have a negative in the plus minus department. So, but Isaac and Jarrett, I thought in particular, were very good in this game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I thought Jarrett really displayed his deft finishing touch in this one. I think, you know, yeah, it's perpetually underrated how good he is with both hands, attacking a really, really good rim protector in Miles Turner. And I thought he was good on the boards. You know, I just in general, I thought he was one of the strongest contributors out there on a very weird night. You know, like I think he held up his end of the bargain. In fact, there were
19 points and 14 rebounds on 8 of 11 shooting. Like, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, in fact, there were a couple plays that I thought really were disappointing where he really did his job, you know, on on the perimeter or as a rim protector, and then, you know, they would give up a crucial offensive board behind him. And that kind of stuff is like, hey, like if he's getting pulled out, Kevin's got to box out better. You know, Karras has to tag his man on the way in. Like, that's the kind of stuff you can't give up. And I thought they had a few of those plays tonight that I thought were a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing, but no, it's never disappointing, Carter. The service we get from Zoom. Support from this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. I butchered that segue a little bit on the way in.
Well, you know, I was just thinking about it, Justin, and I figured out your tell. And your tell is you.
Well, you can't say it's me not like paying attention to what you're saying, because I rarely do.
Yeah, rarely do. Gosh, God knows that. Your tell is that you you always repeat the last thing I said.
I do.
Yeah. That's your game. So I figured you out. And it's over,
I'm
buddy.
basically like looking for you to set me up. Like, you got to do a good job as a point guard, giving me some sort of word that I can latch on to try to do the segue. And if you don't do that, then I'm forced to create on my own, and it gets a little hairy.
Absolutely, buddy. Speaking of people creating, I thought Mobley had a nice connector game. He didn't have a great scoring game, in my opinion, but as a passer, I thought he was quite good.
Mm-hmm. He made a lot of really smart reads, kind of in the short roll. Interior passing, I thought, was very, very good for him. Tied his career high in assists with 7.
Should have had 8. They didn't give him one. The little spoon to Jared Allen. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, well, added to the list of
road scorekeepers.
Yeah. Road scorekeepers, a few questionable calls all around on the night. But I thought he had a good game. There was a couple times where I think he was looking to make the move prior to having the ball even and kind of fumbled it as a result of that. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good game for him. I'd like to see more of this though, right? Like, and especially if Garland's going to miss some time, like you're probably going to need Mobley to experiment a little bit more as a creator to make life easier for Donovan Mitchell, to give the Cavs a little bit of juice there. And I'm sure Kevin Love will be asked to chip in a little bit there. But it's going to be a real team effort if Garland either misses time or if he's a little hobbled and he's just not himself overall on the court.
Yeah, and I think the other person that you're going to kind of look to is Donnie Mitchell, who started the year, with Darius hurt. Really, I thought playmaking very, very well to start the year. I think he averaged around 7 assists a game. Yeah, he had 9, 8, 4, 8, 3, and 12 in the month of October, and like that, those are the kinds of things we want to see. Like a sneaky little subplot is that as Darius has taken on a little bit more creation, Donovan's assist numbers have gone down. He's only averaging 3.5 assists per game in December. And he's going to have to kind of reactivate the I have to be a lead playmaker kind of microchip in his brain if Darius is going to miss time. What did you think of Mitchell tonight? Because I have some notes, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Man, I don't have a lot of thoughts. Like, to me, it was nice to see him running around a little more freely to start the game. I was like, well, okay, well, this is what it's like when you don't have OG Anunoby or Ben Simmons face guarding you the whole time. I just thought it was a better scoring performance from him, and I'm very curious that if you've got a strong take here, because I thought he had a good game.
I think I actually didn't love Donnie's game tonight, to be honest. I thought his numbers. I don't care that much about the efficiency. 10 of 25, 28 points. Like, that's not great. But even in the first half, when his efficiency was good, I felt like he was getting off with a little more talent than making the best reads in this game. I thought his shot making was really, really good until it wasn't. And, I think that, there were just a few plays where it's like, okay, so the ball swings to him for a wide open corner three. He doesn't take it and then steps in and then dribbles into a step back three that he happens to make. But I'm like, why didn't you just take the shot in rhythm that hit your hands perfectly?
Because it's so much cooler this way.
Yeah, and some weird mid rangers that I'm like, I think you could have made taken an easier bucket. And I think it kind of got to them in the back half of the game where it's like, okay, that kind of stuff you can get by, here and there, because he's tremendously talented. But I just thought his shot selection and overall decision making was like a C+, B- tonight, when I think the team really could have used an A.
Yeah. Honestly, I wasn't paying close enough attention. I was trying to figure out more what was happening with the Cavs defensively. I was trying to watch some of the off-ball movement, so I didn't have as much of an eye on Mitchell in this game. We probably should mention that the Cavs were without Jetty Osman for this game, so sore lower back.
Only 9 active players, man. they got a healthy bodies problem right now.
And honestly, I want to give JB a little bit of a shout out for managing the minutes so effectively, because really, like, Allen played 38, which, I mean, he played very well. I think he justified those minutes, and Mitchell played 37. But other than that, like, no one else kind of played like a ton of minutes. Lamar and Okoro both had 21 apiece. Kevin Love had 21. LeVert 35 off the bench. I thought Karras was actually really good, better in the first half than the second.
I would agree with that.
But I thought he was giving pretty good effort on both ends of the court, which was nice to see. But yeah, no one like really played kind of outlandish minutes with this really depleted roster. But yeah, I mean, when you're playing only 8 guys and then one of your best players misses a decent amount of time within the game or is kind of taken out of his effectiveness with the hand injury, that's just not a great spot to be in. And I'm a little dejected with it, honestly. Like I'm in a spot where I just, you want to see the Cavs make the most of this stretch. We had talked about the importance of these divisional games, and I would have liked to seen them come out just a little bit sharper to start this game. And it just felt like one of those nights where, you didn't do yourself any favors and you got hit with kind of the bad luck with the 3-point shooting and the variance, which it's one of those really, really frustrating nights to kind of take in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun. I think it was funny. I was also pretty disappointed by the loss. Still am. I think it's a game they should have won, and I think if they played better, they would have won. And when I say better, I don't mean just like make more shots. I mean play smarter, play a little more, cerebral basketball, Cavaliers basketball, frankly. Then I think they would have won. But it was funny. I think, and you retweeted this, I tweeted this out. I had to kind of check my bias because I feel like with this losing streak, I was like, man, it just feels like the Cavs have their bad stretches in big chunks, and then I go to ESPN.com and I check the stats. They've lost. This is their second losing streak of the season.
I don't like them.
But
you're right.
Like they have now. In fairness, one of those losing streaks was a 5-game losing streak, but this is happening all over the league too. Boston lost three or four in a row. Milwaukee lost 3 or 4 in a row. Denver has lost several games they should not lose. I'm actually a little surprised at how positive the discourse is around Denver, given that I feel like they're fighting for their life against mediocre teams a decent amount, with the 28th overall defense in the league right now. So like it's kind of happening to everyone, but like, I think even last year's Cavs team would have killed for this, this few losing skids. So, I think overall it stinks that in the month of December that looked really, really, really promising, that you have losses to New York, San Antonio, Toronto, and Indy. That does stink. But in fairness, like if you're really evaluating it on balance, I didn't expect to win both Dallas games. I didn't win. No. I did not expect to beat the Bucks. I hoped they would, but I did not expect it. So like I think like on balance, it's I think it's not an A+ month, but it's certainly not like a failure of a month, even though it kind of feels bad heading into a very, very tough stretch.
Yeah, well, I think it's just going to make us feel a little more uneasy in January, right? Like I expect this next month to kind of look similar to that schedule you're showing, where you have 1 or 2 wins and then a loss and then another win and a loss. Like I think that's probably what we're going to see in January, and we're probably not going to make up a lot of ground in the standings, right? Like if you kind of
might lose some ground.
Yeah, like you might be in kind of that 4 or 5 mix for the month of January, and that's not going to feel great. I would love for them to prove me wrong, but like that's likely what it's going to be, and then you remake up that ground in the easier kind of February, March, and April, right? So maybe that's going to be what it is. But man, I just keep coming back to the Garland injury, because you look at this upcoming schedule and honestly, like we got a little bit of a lucky break here, because even with us playing Chicago on Saturday, that's going to be the 3rd game in 4 nights for Chicago, and they're playing a back-to-back. They play Friday, Saturday. We highlight this when it happens to the Cavs. It also happens to other teams, and you can kind of expect Chicago to have some tired legs. So if Garland's out for that one, I mean, we won a game in Chicago already this year without Garland, so maybe Jetty plays and you're able to get enough offense there. But then, you host Chicago, and then you play Phoenix twice next week without Devin Booker, because Devin Booker is going to be out for, I believe it was 4 to 6 weeks, right? Like there was a real kind of opportunity of, hey, the start of January really sucks, but you got Chicago at a rest disadvantage. You got Phoenix twice without Booker. And as you said, with Denver, they have been struggling on the defensive end, although they are still a really damn good team.
They're awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, so are we. Like,
yeah, exactly. Right. Like
we're picking nets.
But this is a winnable stretch. So if we're shorthanded for those winnable stretches, like that's what we experienced last year, right? Was we did really well through the toughest parts of our schedule, and as the schedule finally gets lighter, Garland misses basically all of February. LeVert goes down, Lowry goes down, Allen, Mobley, Wade, like that's, and we weren't able to capitalize on that. And I don't know if it's like the PTSD from that, but I worry that we're not going to be able to capitalize on this next week if the injury is bad. Now, this by the time people are listening to this, maybe there's good news out there, and he's not going to miss any time, or it's just like a small limitation to his effectiveness. But
this is one of the downsides of post-game pods, Justin.
Yeah, but it's in the moment like that would be my concern heading into this next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a fair concern, and again, just to kind of go back to like, I'm just kind of trying to diagnose why this feels a little bit worse than than maybe I think it should right now. Just the 3-game losing streak. I think it's also that the Cavs got a really great schedule break. They've played 2 games. They will have played 2 games between December 24th and December 31st. And, to lose both of them, just it sucks because we don't have, one of the nicer things about the NBA is when you have a bad loss, you play 1 day later, sometimes 2 days later, and you get a chance to make up for it. And, we haven't gotten to see that. So, I think that the Chicago team is playing better. The Cavs are going to have to play good ball to beat them, though.
Chicago just beat Milwaukee. Like that's another reason why this loss is disappointing, because Philly lost to the Wizards and Chicago beat Milwaukee, right? Like 2 games that we would assume would be wins for those 2 teams, and maybe an opportunity for the Cavs to tie Milwaukee in the standings and give a little more breathing room to get away from Philadelphia, and they weren't able to capitalize on it, right? So, I mean, losses are going to be more disappointing because we have higher expectations for this team. I think they deserve higher expectations, and like as much as we know, and as many times as you and I can say, hey, this is a young team, they're inexperienced, they're going to make mistakes. This is a team that could really benefit from more shooting on the perimeter, and all these things that we know. Still, when you go through it in real time and you have these close losses, because so many of the Cavs losses have been close this year, it just stings a little bit more because you start thinking back to the 2 or 3 things that you could have done differently that would have changed the result. Whereas if you just get blown out, you can say, well, we didn't have it on that night, right? Like that's how I felt about the Toronto game, where that just wasn't a good defensive effort, and you can just kind of throw that game out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I had someone tweet after my tweet about the Cavs lack of losing streaks this season. Someone tweeted at me and said, quote, "Think it's just the manner of losses that hurts. Feels like a lot of the mistakes were avoidable and issues we were already aware of." And like one thing I think is really important to note to people who are frustrated with the manner of losing, like you get maybe 1 or 2 losses in a season that you lose even though you played great. Like you typically lose because you played bad or something was going wrong for you. So like I just want to kind of remind the general fan base and even myself a little bit is like, yeah, like losses suck because they suck. It sucks to lose. Like, and like, sometimes you're buried by just an avalanche of 3-point shooting that is above the norm, but also sometimes you just make mistakes, and like I don't think Milwaukee has a lot of awesome losses. I don't think Boston has a lot of awesome losses. I just think that's kind of the nature of the game, and like it's a long season. Obviously, I think the tone heading into January is really dependent on that right hand for Darius Garland, because if it's no big deal, slight bruise, okay. Maybe it'll get better. But if not, then I think it'll be, they're going to have to punch above their weight, which is what we asked them to do last season, and they did a great job at doing so. It'll be interesting to see if they can do that from a different vantage point this season.
Yeah, I mean, best laid plans, right? Like you think, we're going to be able to bring Ricky Rubio along slowly, and maybe we, like you said, we might really need Ricky Rubio to reignite that chemistry with Donovan Mitchell. Hopefully that's not the case. But I do think like it is important that you brought up that context, right? And I remember even the last podcast, one of the notes I had was, can they avoid letting these losses kind of compound and turn into a losing streak? Because I was under the impression that they had a couple, right? Like I didn't even bother fact checking myself in that spot, right? And you sit there and you say, well, the Cavs suck on the road. But as I mentioned, they have the 2nd best net rating in the league on the road. You say, fourth quarters, they've fallen apart. Well, the Cavs have the best net rating in the 4th quarter in the league, right? Like it's it's just one of those things where it feels that way. It feels like emotionally it feels true, but you have to kind of fact check it, right? Like you have to kind of examine the reality of all these statements, because even like when it comes to something like the open shooting, which we've talked about, like the Brooklyn game, they contested a lot of the shots, and Brooklyn still ended up making it. Toronto, they left them wide open. We don't have the data yet for Indiana, but anecdotally, it certainly feels like a lot of the shots are open. But most teams in the league, like if you look at how many open shots are given up a game, it's pretty even. Like it's only separated by like 1 or 2 attempts from being like a top 5 in open shots allowed to a bottom 5 in open shots allowed. And the Cavs currently coming into this game, they gave up the 7th fewest open threes out of any team in the league, and teams are just shooting a ridiculously high percentage. And when teams are hitting contested threes, the open ones end up feeling so much more painful, because it's like, God, right? Like we're just trying to stop this 3-point barrage, and there's another open one. But the reality is most teams give up about 15 open threes a game. Like that's how many the Cavs give up, and that is like an above average rate for the NBA. Like it sucks. Like you said, it feels very loserish to just be sitting here and talk like 3-point variance, but sometimes like this does come down to luck.
Yeah, I mean, God, can you imagine being a baseball podcaster, like a game that's like 85% based on luck? You know, like they literally have a luck stat. Like batting average on balls in play. It's basically like, hey, did you accidentally hit it where there were people? Like
it honestly, it reminds me, I can imagine that, because I remember my very early days of blogging when I was doing both basketball and hockey's very similar to that, right? Because you have the concept of a hot goalie, and it's, hey, did we get enough shots on net? Like, did we generate good quality looks? And it comes down to puck luck at that point, right? Like it sucks. It's the least sexy part of the game to talk about, but sometimes you just kind of run into these streaks. And like you said, you're going to have like 5 games a year where you get open looks and you can't hit a thing. You're going to have 5 games a year where another team just hits absolutely everything against you. And unfortunately for the Cavs, 2 of those games on both sides of that spectrum came against Toronto, where we had 27 open threes and shot 18% on them. And Toronto hitting 1 million of their open looks, even though they're one of the worst teams on wide open looks, right? Like this is the ebbs and flows of the season. It just doesn't change. Like, even though you add that context, it doesn't change the end result. And the end result is what ends up sticking with you, because even if you play a bad game, but you somehow come away with a win, which the Cavs have a couple of those this season, like you just say, hey, it's a win. Winners win. We covered, or whatever the case may be, and you move on, right?
Absolutely, man. It's, and I really do think that, light at the end of the tunnel is coming with some of the health stuff, like it's so hard being down Dean Wade, so hard being down Rubio, 2 guys that, 2 legit rotational players, especially just on the nights where like the other guys don't have it. It's not so painful to not have them when Love's looking good and looking spry, and Jetty's hitting 3 or 4 threes, but on the nights where they don't have it, like that extra stability, that extra place to turn is really, really missed. So really rooting for those guys to get back, and I hope they look healthy and good when they do get back, because it'll give this team a legitimate security blanket. I still think this team's ceiling is unbelievably high, even as currently constituted, but their floor is just a little variable right now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But I agree with you. With those guys coming back, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, just like there is a light going through the front door of my home. Right
yeah, go fix your door, Justin.
I'll go fix my door, and hopefully the Cavs can fix this losing streak. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Obviously not the most fun when we were doing this after a loss, but we still appreciate your presence anyways. If you want to support us, you can like, subscribe, click notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast, you can leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.